Comments and opinions expressed on Writers in Focus are those of the individual participants and are presented for the purpose of discussion only. No endorsements by Atlanta Fulton Public Library System or Fulton County government are intended, and none should be presumed. Hi, welcome to Writers in Focus. I'm your host, James Taylor, and today I'm delighted to have as my guest an old friend, Dr. James Yao. Welcome, John. Welcome to the Atlanta Fulton Public Library and the Fulton County Government Center. We're here to celebrate your latest book. It's called The Armchair Birder Goes Coastal, The Secret Lives of Birds of the Southeastern Shore. By way of introduction, I've known John for a long time. You finished your PhD. I'm just bragging. I know someone with a PhD in English in, I think, 1981 on the work of Andrew Liddell. You had a distinguished career as the senior editor for Longstreet Press. You've written some incidental books, children's books, crazy books. It's there. A lot of books. The internet will tell you everything. But 4 years ago, you wrote a book that caught my attention and the attention of a lot of readers in America, called The Armchair Birder, Discovering the Secret Lives of Familiar Birds. I don't know what you did, but I want you to explain it. What is an armchair birder?
An armchair birder is a quasi-birder who is content to let birds come to him instead of taking sometimes years-long trips to go see the birds. I don't have anything against those people.
No.
I'm just not one of them.
Now, I've read The Armchair Birder Goes Coastal. You and your beautiful wife, Dee Dee, live in Ackworth in this bucolic splendor, and I can imagine you sitting on your porch with a morning coffee or a late afternoon adult beverage, looking at that beautiful cardinal with binoculars, and Dee Dee passed the peanuts, and you said, I can write about this. How did it happen?
How did it happen? Okay, short answer. I wanted to write a book that I thought somebody might publish.
Okay. No, that's a great answer. That's a great answer.
I was a writer before I was a birder.
Okay.
And I knew a lot about, A, how hard it is to write a book, B, how harder it is to get a book published. As you mentioned, I had written 10 or so books.
Oh, yeah.
James, most of these were work for hire. Institutional histories. For people in Atlanta, the best example is the 2 books I've written about Shepherd Center. I did this kind of work for about 10 years after I had left the publishing business.
And you wrote the text for photography essays, teachers, if I recall. Okay.
That's another example. Yeah, golfers. I wrote a history of the transportation industry. It's kind of all over the map. But having done that for, as I say, 8 or 10 years, I really wanted to write a book that I wanted to write. At the same time, I had done some of this even before my career as an editor. I thought maybe I would be a fiction writer. I'd written.
You told me over the phone.
I regret to say.
Four. Ladies and gentlemen, four novels.
These books reside on a shelf at home designated for that purpose.
Sure.
The unpublished work of John Yao. So I knew that that getting a book published is not easy. So, but birds, here's a topic that people are interested in. You know, zillions of people hang bird feeders.
At the same time, John, as a librarian, I went to the 598s, the Dewey Decimal Bird Classification. Scores and scores of books.
Yes.
Go into Barnes & Noble if you can find a bookstore nowadays.
Yes.
there are as many books on birds as there are self-help books, which
Yes.
is extraordinary. So my question would be, of all the topics you
Yeah.
could have chosen, why birds?
Well, I did have the obvious answer. I like birds.
Yeah.
I was living, as you mentioned, I was living in the woods in Ackworth, and I was seeing birds that I'd never seen before.
Yeah.
Scarlet tanagers, yellow-billed cuckoos, birds that don't come to suburban feeders. And seeing these birds got me interested in what they were up to. I started reading about them. So once I started reading about them and found out by reading people like Audubon.
A great writer.
Exactly. What I realized
Yeah,
was that great writing can be done on this.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's how I made that move. And
No, that's a good. That's a good answer.
just to back up a little bit
Yeah.
about this, about how difficult I happen to know it was to get a book published. When I hit upon this topic, I thought I'd found it. I really did. And as I wrote the book, I said, this is working. I'm writing what I think are informative, entertaining, funny,
Erudite.
anecdotal
Yeah.
essays. People are going to enjoy this. I came to the conclusion, James, that I had written, I'd fulfilled my lifelong ambition. I had written a book to which no one could say no. Well, I found an agent. She said yes. I said, well, this is going to be a piece of cake. You know, send it to Random House. Hell, you know.
Sure. Sure.
This poor woman, Sally McMillan,
Mentioned
Charlotte,
in
North Carolina,
yeah.
took a year to find a publisher for the original book, the first book.
No kidding.
A year. I mean, she went down the list. And finally, after a year, I said, Sally, I'm sorry, this hadn't worked out for us. I can't believe it, but it hasn't. So don't you think I should cut you loose? I think you're wasting your time. I'm sure you don't want to keep wasting your time. And she said, well, you know, I haven't tried the University of North Carolina. I know some people there. So let's try that. If that doesn't work, you're probably right. Well, the rest of the story. UNC liked it.
UNC liked it. A great deal of people in the United States liked it. Publishers Weekly liked it. They called your style, and I'm looking at my notes, wait a second, folksy, humorous, and erudite. I'm also looking at my notes, and I've known you for a couple of years. In your second book, you say you're crabby, misanthropic, and a stay-at-home kind of guy. So how did this crabby, misanthropic, stay-at-home guy decide to become a... No, wait a second. Tell the audience what a birder is. It's one thing to sit in your armchair and look at birds and write about them beautifully, beautifully. In my own mind, you write with a folksy charm, with a great deal of erudition, and it's the voice of John Yao, driven by scientific and intellectual horsepower. You're a damn fine writer, John. That's why you're on the show.
Thank you.
How did the armchair birder in Ackworth become an armchair birder goes coastal, where literally it's like a twilight zone. You pass through this machine, transmogrified into, you become a birder.
A birder. Well,
no,
kind of came with the territory. Once we came up with the idea for the sequel,
which is beautiful,
it was incumbent upon me to get out of the armchair and make a few arduous trips to various beautiful coastal
Let's go to that horrible beach.
yeah, it was tough. It was tough work, but I persevered. I stood up to it. Yeah. No, it was a joy to write the book. I'm not misanthropic.
No, I'm just
I'm not.
But you said it.
But
I am
kind of a stay-at-home.
Okay.
And traveling is not. You know, when people talk about bucket lists, I don't name a bunch of places, far-flung places that I haven't seen yet. That's, you know, I kind of agree with Thoreau. You know, it's all right there if you take a good look.
Exactly.
So,
But I love parts of the book. There's almost the motif that runs through it, where you'll be on Dauphin Island, and by email you have been in touch with a renowned ornithologist or someone from the DNR of Alabama or whatever, and you say, could you show me where this red-tailed blah, blah, blah is? And we'll talk about birds in a minute. And he'll say, well, can you meet me at 7 o'clock in the morning? And almost your prose hesitates.
Yeah,
7 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a little early for me.
Yeah, because you reveal a lot, and it takes you 2 hours in the morning to get going.
Yeah.
But listen, let's talk about the book itself. Someone asked me before the show, what's this book about? It's not a book about birding per se. It's anecdotal. It's beautiful, beautifully written, I should say. But it's about 28 species of coastal birds that I've seen all my life living in Georgia. What's that tern? What kind of heron is that? What kind of egret is that? Let's talk about the architectonics of the book, the structure of the book.
Let's do.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I forget you're a smart guy.
Yeah, yeah. This is what you say there are, 1,000 birding books in the library. There's several shelves of birding books in Barnes & Noble. I thought and still think that I came up with a pretty good idea.
There's nothing like this.
I don't think so. And so my idea was to take in both these books, the first one, which is about birds that come into your backyard or into the woods near your house, but they're familiar birds. But my idea was that if these are the birds that people see, then these are the birds that people would like to know about.
Right.
So there you go. I mean, 35 birds in the first book, 28 birds in this book, but the same concept. If you go to the coast, these are the birds that you are familiar with. And as I say, by extension, the birds that you probably would enjoy reading about.
Yeah. I want to give the audience just a taste of your writing. This will take 30 seconds, but you're talking about the royal tern, and you have a style, and I'll read the first paragraph, and you say, Audubon called his masterwork Birds of America, an apt title, to be sure. But it does invite the curious mind to ponder, where are we to find the quintessentially American bird? Or for that matter, where are we to find America? I'd like you to read that second paragraph. And ladies and gentlemen, this is John Yao reading from his book, The Armchair Birder Goes Coastal. That's a mouthful.
The Armchair Birder Goes Coastal. It is a mouthful. My own mind began circling around these questions, that is, where to find America's bird, after a recent excursion to Little St. Simon's Island, which, at $600 a night, give or take, is a lovely place. Quiet, unspoiled, the sanctuary of fine people in their finer moments. But it's not America. To find America, I realized I had to retrace my steps, back from the little island, back from the larger St. Simon's Island, back across the island causeway to Highway 27, and south a few miles to the Super 8 Motel in Brunswick. $60 a night, give or take.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, in the course of John's disquisition on the royal tern, he will quote Arthur Bent, Gardner Stout, Edward Howe Forbush, John James Audubon. He'll introduce data from the Birds of North America online database from Cornell University. Right. He'll talk about his sleeping habits. John, that's not the birds, but John's. He will talk about the scientific analysis of the bird's mating behavior. And then John might conclude his chapter on the royal tern by saying, and if you'd read this, where I've just...
Here's the picture then. May I interject?
Yes. Yes, this is your interview.
Yeah. The essay has drawn an extended comparison between the behavior of this tern, the royal tern, and the behavior of America, or
of course.
Americans. So here's the picture then, summing up this comparison. Accomplished but improvident, pugnacious in its own defense, loud, brawling, and pleasure-loving, but pious when it comes to traditional values, and erratically parental. With apologies to the bald eagle, as well as to Ben Franklin's wild turkey, I believe we found America's bird.
Wonderful, wonderful writing, and the book is filled with exquisite passages like that. To get back to an original question, it's probably the toughest one I have to ask. I'm trying to find out what is it about birding that makes people so obsessive? It's something, I love birds. I go to the shore and I love the terns and my wife and I love to look at, but I don't have a spotting scope. I don't have the library that you probably have. What is it? I'll get you started. Okay, the series years ago called Civilization by Kenneth Clark. And why were there so many birds painted in the 16th and 17th centuries? And Kenneth Clark says, it must be man's search for freedom. We see in birds freedom. I don't know.
That's a good one. That's a good one. And certainly a good start. I would include that. I mean, the flight of birds is inspirational, but the beauty of birds is inspirational. The habits of birds are unbelievably fascinating once you begin to delve into them. So there are any number of reasons to become a birder and become an enthusiastic birder.
Okay.
I have not become an obsessed birder, and I have to say that some people do that too. Some people just become obsessed, and they. James, I'm working now on a new book. Be very brief about it. It's also a book about birds, but different from these two. It's a book about birds that we have lost, birds that we almost lost, but were recovered, and birds that we may yet lose. And right now, I'm writing a chapter about the ivory-billed woodpecker. Now, this is a bird that, if it's not extinct, it almost is. There may be a pair somewhere in North America. If so, it or they have not been seen in 8 or 10 years. That's the last sighting, 2004, 2005. But my God, the quest to see these birds is just beyond the pale.
You said it yourself on page 19 of your book. You're talking about, is it the white ibis?
White ibis.
White ibis, and you say it's probably exemplifies beauty itself in many ways. And someone has taken you to Cat Island, which is off of Dauphin Island. And you can set this up, but you see a white ibis.
Oh, yeah.
And right where I've indicated here.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Set this up a little further.
Sure.
I was very fortunate to be invited to Dauphin Island by a guy named Stowe Stowers. This was so typical of my experience in writing this book. People that I had never
Sight
known.
unseen. They say, come on down?
And this, I think, is characteristic of birding people.
Yeah.
Very generous with their time. They just love to share these sights with the incognoscenti, as I remain, actually. But Dauphin Island itself was very birdy. A lot of great birds around Dauphin Island.
This is right off the coast of Alabama, Gulf of Mexico.
Just below Mobile. Yeah. And but Stowe knew this little rookery out in the middle of the Mississippi Sound called Cat Island. And man, we went out there. I'll now read this part.
Okay.
The whole thing was pretty overwhelming, and not just for armchair birders. Now I'll stop to say, we saw every kind of heron, egret, wading bird, marsh. I mean, they were all there, crowded into this tiny little rookery on this island. So the whole thing was pretty overwhelming, and not just for armchair birders. I got a doctor friend up in Huntsville, said Stowe on our way back in. He and his wife have gone all over the world on birding trip, professional guides and everything. I brought them out here, and they called it the most amazing place they'd ever seen.
That's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
When the beauty of birding is in your backyard, to be alliterative, why do birders travel around the world in search of that's crazy.
It's a matter, and this is
I know.
a matter of the list.
Listen, you've studied this. I haven't.
Yeah, it's a matter of the list.
Okay.
People like to check off the species.
Isn't there an anecdote about you that you mentioned in this book where you're addressing a book talk to birders in Alabama, and You say there's birds in your own backyard. If you see 15 or 20 birds in your life, that's great. How many have you seen? And the woman says 615 species.
Yeah, she was the wrong person to call on to illustrate that point.
Yeah.
I was trying to make the point that my book was much more useful than a guidebook with all these species that nobody's ever going to see. But I was called up short.
I've got to say this, though, too. You introduced me to... I knew Audubon as, who doesn't know Audubon as the guy, the painter, but his writing is exquisite.
Unbelievable.
And you introduced me to, and this is the age of the internet and PCs, you introduced me to Birds of North America online. I paid $5 for, ladies and gentlemen, pay $5 for a month or $49 a year, and you enter into a world that you will not believe. That's why I don't think, I was going to say, how come there aren't any beautiful color plates in here? You don't need them if you have Birds of North America online. Is that your feeling?
Well,
there's
certainly, that's a fabulous resource. But and if you want easy access to color plates as well as audio and complete information about birds, there are 1,000 apps you can put on your iPhone. So
that's incredible.
So it's all very much available. I would love to have had color plates.
Okay. Just I had to ask.
Little cost issue.
Little cost issue. A lot of that stuff. To have a random color picture in a book like this, one every 12 or 15. You have to set up your press to have full color, and it's just boom. I understand. So how much of a birder have you become? And I have this twilight zone, like you enter this space and you become a birder. Like, do you have a huge hat and extra layers of clothing and the spotting scope and your wife saying, "John, come home, come home"?
If I could, I can't. I don't have those things.
Okay.
I make fun of those things actually in the book. But
it's so beautiful, folks. It's so beautifully written. I can, in my mind's eye, I can see John like walking down a narrow path to a tidal pool or a salt marsh, and there are birders there, and they look at John knowing he's not a birder. What are you doing here? And John's looking at them saying, "You're birders." I'm not making that up.
No, that's pretty much the way it is. Pretty much the way it is. If you want to spend $1 million on birding gear,
and people do,
it's there. It's in the store.
Unbelievable.
My brother Richard is, frankly, a better birder than I am, and he's one of these people.
The brother that your aunt favored. No, that's an anecdote in the book, but let's not go there.
Right. But he has a spotting scope and likes to take trips, exotic trips, eco trips, where he'll see a lot of birds. And he's not sure why I don't want to do that. But on the other hand, if I may say so, I write better than he does.
Yeah. Let's, folks. I forgot to mention this, that the Bible, at least the serialized Bible of American birding, is Audubon magazine. And Audubon magazine recently told John that his book, The Armchair Birder Goes Coastal, is one of their notable books for 2012.
Thank you for mentioning that.
Did that feel as good as it makes me feel interviewing you? That's like being knighted by the Queen,
I can't tell you how good that made me feel. And this, I got this word from my publisher, forwarded the word to me. And I got word of that after I had just returned from a book signing down on St. Simon's, at which 3 people showed up. I thank those 3 people. I appreciate it. But for a person like me who is not on a New York Times bestseller list, who doesn't have 50,000 Twitter fans, and all, book signings are a tough gig. If they don't know you, if you don't have a reputation, then people don't come to your book signing. And so I've done this a lot of times, and I have appreciated the people who do come, but it kind of wears you out, and you come back from a signing like that saying, and you have to write you know, report back to your publicist
And
at
you
the
have
press
to, you have
and say,
to be on.
yeah, you say, well, it was great, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
4 people came, and then, you know, I signed a lot of books at the store for them to sell later. Big success, you know. But then, you know, the next day, I got word that this book had received that fine designation, and it was wonderful. Really did make me feel good.
One question to a former English major. You have an inimitable style that is at once folksy, scientific, and funny. You are great. It reads as if you are telling a great story to an educated audience, sipping sherry at some castle in the Highlands of Scotland, or whatever.
Right.
You have that. You have a classy style. Are you aware of it?
Yes.
Do you,
yes. I mean,
I wasn't expecting that.
I'm not aware of what people might say about it. But
you're doing it on purpose.
I'm doing it on purpose. I am writing in my voice.
Yes.
I think that's critical. I am trying to be funny, and I'm trying to be eloquent. I'm trying to be economical with language. I'm trying to do like Jonathan Swift told us to do, and put the right words in the right places. And if it works, it's because I tried hard to make it work.
You made it work. John Yao, ladies and gentlemen. He's the author of The Armchair Birder Goes Coastal, The Secret Lives of Birds of the Southeastern Shore. The Armchair Birder has had an apotheosis. He's now a real birder. Let's be friends. You are great. Wonderful.
My pleasure.
Wonderful.
Thanks so much.
Those of the individual participants and are presented for the purpose of discussion only. No endorsements by Atlanta Fulton Public Library System or Fulton County government are intended, and none should be presumed.